but we are right down to the last 3 months, and we need to get this all figured out. So we're gonna go ahead tonight and talk with our team. Members are going to introduce the Corporate Transparency Act to you. So I believe I know mostly everybody in the room, but my name is Lindsay Rubel, and I'm the HOA partner of the condominium and HOA team here at Equus Law Group. And I'm going to introduce my team members. Back in the corner, we have Rebecca Hill, who is our marketing director, and she's the one who gets all of this set up, who sends out all of the announcements to you and orders catering, and we're very appreciative that she's done so much to make tonight possible. And then Megan Cousins, who is our HOA paralegal. For those of you I've known for a long time, Megan and I have worked together now for a total of 9 years. I'm sure she wishes she could forget most of that, but really and truly, she is my right hand, and she's the best at what she does. I have had people said that she's the best paralegal in Northeast Ohio, so we're glad that she's with us this evening. And then also from our team, attorney Madeline Annick, who many of you have met. She has been with our team for approximately 2 years. And I know that some of you have seen her either at your meetings or been in court with her. She's really excellent. She brings a great energy to our team that we love. And she is a great brief writer. That's one of her strong suits. We really look to her for her great writing, which is something that, while I love to write, a lot of times there's not a lot of time for it. So Madeline's great at it. Kelby Crawford, she is a graduate of Kent State University through their paralegal certification program. And she is currently serving as a legal assistant and also works with our intake team when we have new potential clients come in. She is the lead of that team as well. And then we have attorney Matthew Kearney with us as well. So he is technically part of our HOA team, but we actually have him here as more of a guest this evening. He is taking a small leave of absence from the firm. He has been appointed to the legal team for the Small Business Administration. So we congratulate him and wish him luck in his new role, but we're hopeful in the coming months that he might be back with us, that some of you have seen him at your meetings as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the fun of the Corporate Transparency Act this evening. And one of the issues that we have all been wrestling with since we found out about the Corporate Transparency Act is how we are going to roll it out to you all as the board members and property managers, how we are going to make compliance as easy as possible. Because I was just saying a little bit earlier today, in this field, working with condominiums and homeowners associations, it's not very often where something new comes up where we have to dramatically change what we're doing or do something new. One of the things that happened, especially during COVID, is when all the chaos started about no in-person meetings and how do we handle common hallways. Those were things that nobody knew how to deal with, and we had absolutely no warning. So compared to what happened during COVID, this whole Corporate Transparency Act and registering for beneficial ownership is super easy. So that's the good news. So from our team's perspective, we are trying to educate ourselves as much as possible before we roll out any of these changes to you as the board members and property management for the association. So for those of you who are not familiar, one of the organizations that we belong to is called the Community Associations Institute. And that is a national organization that is made up of board members, property managers, attorneys from all over the United States of America and actually all over the world who have an interest in making better laws and education for those who are involved in community associations, including condominiums and homeowners associations. So through that organization, we get education for the property management companies and attorneys. There are seminars that are in person, only in warm places, sometimes in Florida, sometimes in Las Vegas. But generally, members of our team are there at least twice per year getting this education. And we try to roll out what we learned to all of you through our newsletters and some other announcements that we send out periodically. So we're going to get into a little bit the nuts and bolts of what we're recommending today and where this is going. And like I said, we're at kind of our deadline because all of the filing needs to be done by the end of this year. We were hoping when we found out about all of this, that at some point we would get information and a directive from the Department of Treasury that board members would be exempt from filing these reports that are required of all organizations. But as of today, all the board members are going to have to get this information submitted by the end of the year. So that being said, I am going to turn it over to Attorney Madeline Anik, and she's going to explain a little bit about what the Corporate Transparency Act is and how we're going to move forward from here. So Madeline?
And well, hello, everyone. I'm again Attorney Madeline Anik, and I do have a piece of paper here because, yeah, that helps. All right, so first thing is, what is the Corporate Transparency Act? Why is it here? It was initially intended as an anti-money laundering piece of legislation. You might hear it called the CTA or the Anti-Money Laundering Act. It was enacted originally in January 2021 by Congress for part of the National Defense Authorization Act. Essentially, it was intended to combat money laundering, but also terrorist financing, the idea that you've got terrorist organizations that are being funded through shell companies, corruption, tax fraud, and to prevent new schemes. I guess, impetus behind this is we're going to be keeping better track of our small entities, our corporations and LLCs, which of course, your community associations are one, a nonprofit entity. It's not so much about only being concerned with individual HOAs in money laundering or committing financial crimes. It's keeping a database of all of the LLCs and corporations for the sake of national security. So it's not necessarily that we're concerned about you guys, it's concern about everyone. This actually all started back in 2006. We got reprimanded sort of by the international community as a country for not keeping better track of this information. So it's been a long time coming. The primary thing that it does, though, that we are all concerned with here is the CTA. It introduces a new duty that all of our HOAs and our condo associations have to comply with, and that is reporting their information about the organization itself, as well as its beneficial owners. And so, again, the idea is people aren't hiding anymore behind layers of shell corporations. We now know who are the real people behind these organizations. They file what's called a beneficial owner information report. And what that report's going to contain is, names, addresses, and it's all confidential, kept confidential by FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. There we go. I always think there's going to be financial crimes. Anyway, thank you for laughing. So, who is a beneficial owner? FinCEN's provided some instructions since the law rolled out, most recently for HOAs back in April. They produced some additional information about who this might be. First of all, we know they have to be real people. You can't say, oh, I created this shell company and its owner is this other company. No, it's gotta be a real person and real IDs. Additionally, FinCEN has advised that it expects that every corporation is gonna have at least one beneficial owner. You can't say, oh, well, we have too many people involved. There is no one owner. There's gotta be at least one, is what they say. Now, your beneficial owner is one of two things. There's two qualifications we can look for. You're either indirectly or directly exercising substantial control over the organization, or you're someone who indirectly or directly owns at least 25% of the entity. You're standing over there. So
I'm just moving slides.
because I'm forgetting to.
It's all good. I did.
Anyway, so what that means, the 25% ownership, that would mean that if you had one owner who owns, let's say, 25% of the units in your condo association, or 25% of the lots in your HOA, they're a beneficial owner. Even if they're not on the board, they would still be a beneficial owner and they would have to file under PCTA. The FinCEN has specifically identified some folks for HOAs to look out for as a beneficial owner. They say senior officers, anyone who has authority to appoint or remove certain officers or majority director, anyone who's an important decision maker or has any other form of substantial control. Who's not a beneficial owner, your lawyers, your accountants, and other third-party agents or contracted workers, because we're not the ones making decisions. We act at the behest of the board of directors. That category as well, who are not beneficial owners, we also include property managers. So although your property manager does take on a lot of day-to-day duties, they perform a lot of the functions of the organization. Again, the decisions are all being made by the board of directors. So at this time, our interpretation of the act is that property managers are not beneficial owners and they do not need to file. I will say though, it's not like there's a hard line that FinCEN has put out there. They've said that if you have substantial control, you have to file. So there's a possibility that that decision that we've made, that property managers, we don't file, could change if FinCEN advises differently. So who knows? And then filing deadlines. So when do we need to file? If you existed prior to January 1st, 2024, which I would bet a substantial amount of money is probably everybody in this room. Your filing deadline is January 1st, 2025. It needs to be filed by that date. Your BOI, beneficial owner information report. If you were created on or after January 1st, 2024, it's within 90 days of receiving notice that the formation was effective, or the Secretary of State or a similar office provides you public notice that the entity was formed. So if you filed with the Secretary of State, usually you immediately get provided, notice that the entity is formed. It could be just as soon as that. And then finally, entity is formed after January 1st, 2025. It's going to be within 30 days of notice that the entity was formed. Another important deadline, though, that impacts everyone in this room. If there's any change to the information on the beneficial owner information report, what that means is changing the board, changing the address of one of the board members, then we need to be filing updated report with FinCEN. Technically, you only need to file once, but then you also need to file an updated report if that information changes, which it will constantly for HOAs and condo associations. So that's why we need to be real clear about the duties. That said, FinCEN has advised that it's going to be somewhat lenient with the understanding that this is a new law. Specifically, they've said that any penalties can be avoided for mistakes that are corrected within 90 days of the deadline for the original report. But we're not banking on that. We're still advising that everyone is filed by the prescribed deadline. All right. And then I believe next I'm going to turn it back to Lindsay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Madeline.
Thanks. Do you want me to handle your slides?
No, I'm hopefully gonna remember, but thank you. I'm proud of you.
you over.
Sure. So with these filings that we're talking about, these beneficial owner reports, basically there's going to be one filing per association. So basically, we're gonna have two steps. So one is we're gathering a bunch of information about the board members. And then there's going to be the actual submitting of the report. So that's been a little bit of a confusion. I know even for business owners, they might have a bunch of LLCs set up and they say, well, how do I have to file and when? We just want to make it clear, you're not each filing your own individual report. You're filing one on behalf of your association, and that one report will be continuously updated after the annual meeting where we have a board member change. So that was been one issue that some of my colleagues have had is the confusion, who actually submits a report, and we're going to get into that a little bit. There's been a little bit of discussion about, well, as board members, are we going to be exempt at some point? Well, again, as of right now, all of you in this room who are board members are going to be required to file. And there are a few exceptions, which I don't believe that any of you qualify for currently. So one would be your technical 501c4 organization, and you're considered to be tax exempt because you're charitable and you're a nonprofit. That's one of the things that we often get confused with HOAs and condominium associations in Ohio, because with the Ohio Secretary of State, you register as a nonprofit corporation, but under the IRS rules, you're actually a not-for-profit corporation. So you can still pay taxes if you have a source of income that's taxable. So for most of you, you're not paying taxes on the maintenance fee income, but you are paying taxes, for example, on the interest on a savings account. Or if you've had some of your funds put into a CD and you've realized a return on that CD, you're going to be paying taxable income on that particular amount for the association. Another exemption is if you have more than $5 million in annual revenue. Again, us in Ohio, it's not a big deal. In Florida, they have associations that are 50,000 people and they have millions and millions of dollars in revenue. So most of us are not in that boat. And then lastly is if you have 20 or more employees. And again, even for those of you who have some larger buildings with on-site staff, usually your property management company is taking care of those employees on their payroll. So it's not necessarily something that would be attributable to your association. And then the last one that I don't have on this slide is if you are an unincorporated association, and I don't think that any of the people in this room are an unincorporated association. From time to time, there's a mistake made down the road and there's never actually any sort of articles of organization filed with the Secretary of State's office. And there's never a record of any sort of entity. If that's the case, you're an unincorporated association, there's no need to file under this particular law. Oh. And then this comes to, well, how do we file this beneficial ownership report on behalf of the association? So really, in my opinion, you have three options. So the first is if any of you are savvy with computers and want to take this on yourself, you as the board member can decide, I'm going to be the one who's in charge of all this. And I'm going to work through this with FinCEN and file all of this, and I will be responsible for updates. If you decide to do that, that is fine. But the problem is you are going to, if there are any mistakes in that information or any information is given to you that is not accurate, you're putting yourself on the hook for any misinformation. So again, that's fine if that's how you'd like to proceed. But then the problem becomes, and this hasn't been made clear to us, this initial set of filings, the first one for each association, is going to be somewhat easy in my opinion, because it's all on our radar. I'm more concerned about when those updates come up, because sometimes we'll send out emails to a board and say, hey, for example, here's a copy of the collection letter that we sent pursuant to your policy. And then we get an email back that says, oh no, so-and-so moved away 3 months ago, but nobody updated the information, which is fine. And we correct it pretty quickly, but the issue is with FinCEN, we have that 30-day window. And my concern is going to be if you as a board president or a property manager, even if you take on that responsibility that, listen, I'm going to take charge of this. If you then move away from the association, you're still listed as that responsible person. So again, that is not a perfect system of how we're going to shift that responsibility as to who is in control of the association's filing. The association's filing is actually going to be, once you do this initial filing, you're going to get your own FinCEN fetch number is what it's called. At least on our end, where the government is going to sign your own unique ID. So that in theory is what is going to be traveling with your association through the boards, through the remainder of time for as long as you need to do these filings. But you just need to make sure that person is going to be a consistent presence on the board or in the association, if that's what you choose. The second is your property management company. If you are not self-managed and you work with a professional property management company, some of them are offering that they are going to do these filings on your behalf. I know that some of them with their software systems that they use, they have an integration so that they're going to be able to easily submit this data over to FinCEN for data purposes, but not all of them. So if you have questions about whether your manager is doing that or not, I would ask them. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because once we sent this out, a few of the property managers said to me, make sure they know that they might have the option with their manager too, because the manager might have a better, more concrete option for you, and that's totally fine as well. Third would be our team here at Equus. We'd be happy to do the filing on your behalf. Now, what we have decided to do is we are going to be working through an integration with our software system. A lot of you, we don't talk about this a lot because it's internal to us and not necessarily pertinent to you. But we, a few years ago, we decided to change over our legal software to a company that specifically does HOA legal representation. So our software is set up so that we have, for example, we have a nice place where every board member goes and when their terms expire. That is going to nicely flow into when those terms are expiring. That is going to prompt our team to reach out and send automatic reminders. Listen, it appears that this term is ending. Even if you weren't at your annual meeting this year, has there been an update? So that's one of the things that will be good on our end is we're able to sort of foresee when those changes might possibly be based upon when your annual meeting has historically been. So we're going to prompt you and bother you for when those changes are happening, so that we don't run afoul of that 30-day time frame for the updates. And then on that same vein, we want to talk about oh, yes.
Sorry, just a couple of
Oh,
questions.
sure, absolutely.
One was there, just want to know that you heard this correctly, that if income is less than 5 million, there's no requirement to file.
I'm sorry?
You said that if the income is less than 5 million, then they don't have to require to file. Is that correct?
No. Yeah, if it's less than 5 million, they will need to file.
Okay.
Yes.
So they will need to file.
They will need to file. Yeah.
Second question is, are you going to charge a set fee for the initial filing and future updating filing?
Yes, so excellent question. We're actually gonna talk about the fee structure a little bit later on. But yes, there will be a fee for the filing this year if it's done on our end. Part of that fee is the cost of our legal time, but we do pay per filing to our company that does it as well. So we will talk a little bit about that, closer to the end of the presentation, but good question. I want to just make this very clear too, because again, this is based upon what our colleagues have told us. That there's been a little bit of confusion about the filings. And one of those things that have come in is it hasn't happened with us because I wanted to make sure we had this seminar and we were able to answer questions and such before we rolled out how we were going to do this. But we've had a situation where multiple board members have started CTA registrations under FinCEN, and now that association has like 5 different numbers. So we want to make sure first and foremost that you are aware that this is a board decision, and before you pull the trigger as to how you're going to do this, that you talk about it as a group and notate it in your meeting minutes as to how it's going to be handled. Because as with all things are new, we don't quite know how to fix if you have 5 different FinCEN numbers and how we're going to handle that. So my recommendation would be, if you have board members who are not here this evening, I would bring this up at your next board meeting. Or you can talk about it with your board via email. So there's two ways that we can, bear with me just one second here. Okay, so what we want to do here is make sure we have a valid board decision before we move forward. We will count on the board to do that on your own. We don't need to see your meeting minutes, but I would just say either do one of 2 things. Have this discussed at your next meeting and have the board approve whatever method you're going to do. If you're going to have a board member complete the registration, if your property management company is willing to do this on your behalf, or you would like our law firm to do this on behalf of the association, I would just make sure the board is on the same page and you confirm that nobody else has started the process yet. You can also do this by email. In the state of Ohio, as long as you have a unanimous decision, you can make that decision via email. So what that means is if you have a 5-member board, for that decision to be unanimous, all 5 board members must vote. All 5 board members must say, yes, this is how we're going to do this. And then also there's the added portion of the statute that says, if we are making this vote outside of a meeting, you are technically supposed to attach the consents to your next set of board meeting minutes. That's the one part that we always miss because we just think it's natural because we have it on email. But I would just make sure it's all properly documented so it is clear who is going to be handling this on behalf of the association. Okay. And that kind of moves us along to who's going to be responsible for, once we complete the initial filing, who's going to be responsible for the updates. So you as board members, you are going to be on the hook for at least letting whoever is in charge of your filing know when there's an update. So if you move from the association and you are no longer eligible to be on the board, you should be reaching out to whoever that person is who did the initial filing so that you can take yourself off as a beneficial owner. And again, this is, once you kind of pick that point person, you're going to want to stick with that point person, whether it's us, whether it's your manager, or whether you have a board member who's willing to do these filings. Just so you can ensure that we're all filing under, again, the same registration number, and we don't accidentally start a whole new report in that regard. So penalties for non-compliance. So as Madeline had alluded to, there's always stiff penalties for failing to file as required by the federal government. How they're gonna come out and find you as board members, and if they really have nothing better to do, I don't know. But it's my job to tell you that these are the penalties. So civil penalties up to $500 per day against those who fail to register on time or fail to update with a change within 30 days. And then criminal penalties up to 24 months in prison and up to $50 per day for those who fail to register. So again, this is crazy, and I don't foresee how they're gonna come after any of you as volunteers. And of course, this is making it much easier for us to get volunteers who'd like to be on the board. The pay is so good, of course. But you know, at the core of it, I want to make this, and our team has worked really hard, looked at a lot of systems, how we want to handle this to make it as easy as possible for you as board members, so you can do something once and basically forget about it. So that's what we're going to try to do. And we're going to kind of roll through how we are doing these filings so that you're aware of how that process is going. And then how are we going to officially complete this process whereby Equus, our HOA legal team, is going to do this filing on behalf of your association. So one is the official board decision. So once that's decided at a meeting or outside of a meeting by email, we would like you to let us know if you'd like us to do it on your behalf. Even if you don't let us know, we are probably going to bother you within the next 30 to 60 days because we'll want a response, because we want to make sure everybody is compliant, whether it's filing with us or not by the end of the year. So we might bother you even if we don't hear from you. So if you, as a board, have made a decision, we would ask that you email Ms. Kelby Crawford. Her email address is on here. And obviously, if you happen to email into any one of us, that's going to be sufficient as well. We will make sure Kelby gets the information, but she's going to be our CTA administrator primarily. So let Kelby know. And then what Kelby is going to do is she is going to, whoever that point person is, if you have a property manager, we're going to confirm with the property manager your tax identification number, who the current board members are, and we're going to ask that person to sign. Again, once this is a valid board decision, we're going to ask that person to sign an authorization that Equus Law Group can file on behalf of your association. It's all set up through e-signature, so it should be a little check, a little signature, and it will date it, and then you're good to go, at least as far as the authorization goes. And then what will happen then is we are going to, as part of that process, there's going to be some things for you to fill out. One of the items is the Department of Treasury under FinCEN, they require that we have a physical address for each association. It cannot be your statutory agent's address, which for most of you, we are your statutory agent. It cannot be our address. It cannot be a PO box. So we will be requesting an actual address. So we can, yes, Marty. Yes, so can it be your managing agent's address? So we have gotten no directive that it cannot be your managing agent's address. It just cannot be a PO box or your statutory agent's address. So my response would be, I think we should do the filings with your management company's address, just in case there are follow-up documents that are ever sent, clients notices. We want to make sure it's going to a place where we know somebody's going to pick up that email. The problem with using a board member's address is if that person moves or is off the board and decides, I'm not gonna deal with this stuff anymore, I'm gonna put it in front of the cabinet. We wanna make sure that you get the information timely, especially if there's a notice of non-compliance. So excellent question, Marty. Yes, Ms. Carmen. Yeah, so the question is, if all of your business is through your PO box, what are you supposed to do in that situation? So if you do not have a central management office, which I know some associations do have, you will likely then probably want to pick a board member, either the president or the person who is primarily, usually there's one person who's kind of the point for everything and who's been on the board for a little while. Not that anybody wants to have that address as the registration address. I would say you would pick the point person who's kind of your go-to for a lot of those administrative things. And you as a board should discuss that to determine whether or not that makes sense to keep that person. But yes, unfortunately, the PO box is something that we can't get around. Our filings won't even go through if we have a PO box as that address, unfortunately. But excellent question. Okay. So Kelby is going to do the legwork, is going to get you the authorization and waiver to that point person or to the property manager to sign on your behalf. And what I wanted to make sure of is to be very clear about the process. We wanted to walk you through what it's going to look like. If you say, yes, we would like you to do this for us, we want you to see what the association board members are going to get in their email and how you're going to go through that process. So basically, you as board members will be getting a little snippet request for information. Kelby is going to gather all of that and it's going to be submitted once all of your board members have given us the requested information. So Kelby is going to walk through this. In your materials here, we have screenshots that go line by line, how this is going to happen page by page. So if you want to refer back to it, but we thought it would be more helpful for you to see it live and see what it looks like. So Kelby is going to come up, show you how to go through this, and explain a little bit line by line here. So Ms. Kelby. Oh, is it that screen? It should pop on there. So you should be able to see it. Oh, yeah.
Yep. I did backwards, but okay, okay.
You good?
Okay. Hi, everybody. So, so yeah, Lindsay explained it great. We went through a lot of headaches to get to the point where this process is going to be significantly easier than anything else that we've looked at. Obviously you have, your two other options, but if you choose to go with us, this is what it's going to look like for the board members. We're going to take care of the actual, pushing it through and registering the association. Each board member is going to get an email. And it's going to look like that. It's not going to come from Equislog, it's going to come from Vincent Fetch. And where it says test HOA, it's going to say your association's name, not test HOA. So keep that in mind when you're looking for it. And so when you click on it, this is what it's going to look like. And you're going to see our logo here, so you know it's legit. And then from there, you can read through this. It's just basically explaining what we've already talked about. This is for the beneficial owners. So once you go to the dashboard, this is where you're going to create an account for yourself. So essentially, it's going to be your email in theory. And then here you're gonna do a password. So let's just make a real easy password. And it's kind of hard to do this with backwards, but we'll figure it out.
And, you know, I just want to clarify too, that this is what you all are gonna get once you give us the go-ahead.
Yes.
And the verified board members, each of you is gonna get an individual email that looks like this. And and Kelby's gonna walk you through that process. So if you have 5 board members, 5 emails are gonna go out, like,
Sorry, everybody.
yeah, so that's an excellent question. So what if we have a board member who does not want to do this? And this has come up before. My simple response has been, with this registration, you are just, giving the government, a copy of your government ID, which the government issued to you anyways. So we made sure that we were going to do this through a secure portal, because we didn't want to do this by email or anything else. We wanted to make sure it was secure. And Kelby will even go through how you do some, factor authentication, which she's way younger than I am. She can explain that much better.
Way younger, but it took me a while to figure out the password.
But, so if somebody's not willing to register, I mean, it's really information that the government has already. But I would say, and you're gonna subject yourself to these penalties. So I've heard of people saying, I don't wanna do this as a board member, I'm off the board, and that's very unfortunate. I guess the issue is, if we submit an incomplete report, that might be an issue down the road for the association. So I would encourage those people, if they don't wanna file, have them give our office a call. That's one of the things that we offer for all of you as board members, is we offer brief telephone calls free of charge. So if you want to call us, you want to email us, and they want to flush that out with us, provided that they're not taking 2 hours, we're not going to charge for it. We want to get through this with you guys. And this is, we're flat rating this. So if you have questions, we're not going to charge for kind of the follow up. And again, we'll get to that section of it, but have them talk to us, and hopefully we can walk them through that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. So yeah, once you've made your password with your email, you now have an account for the FinCEN Fetch through us specifically. And then you move forward to continuing to the info request. This is gonna pop up, it's again, just repeating what we've already talked about. This is mandatory report. You're the beneficial owner and you want to submit this information. So from here, this again will say your HOA's name. This report type is going to be initial, and this is when I've sent out the email requesting it. So it'll say whatever date you requested it. From there, you're going to tap for information. So this part, the FinCEN ID, most of you or all of you are not going to have a FinCEN ID yet. This is if you've already registered. So a majority of you are going to say no, but if you don't have a FinCEN ID, or if you do, I'm sorry. If you have a FinCEN ID, then you would say yes. If not, then say no. And a majority of you are not going to be minors. So from there, the actual information is needed. The ID is going to be the biggest thing. So we need a picture of your ID, passport, or a state ID or a license. This information is only going to be seen by our team, nobody else on the board, and nobody else at FinCEN, just us and the people that's being submitted to, which is the government who made the ID, which is great. So they already have that information. Yeah.
Can you repeat those things that what did you say?
Yeah, so it's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So a driver's license, a state ID, or a passport. And again, when you go through there, it's gonna request one of those things anyway. So from here, you can upload the ID picture. And when you do, I don't have anything to upload, unfortunately. So when you do, you guys can flip to the next slide. Sorry. Slide 28. It's gonna ask you about extracted information. Yeah,
How would I upload it? I don't have like a scanner on my computer, so.
So-
I don't know how to do that.
and I know this might be an issue for a lot of people. The best thing we can offer right now, because it's gonna want a very clear picture with nothing in the background. You're gonna have to do maybe a local library or come into the office. One of our offices will absolutely scan it in for you. And then that way we, can send it back to you and you can use it for submission. But it's gonna be very tested, so you're gonna have to make sure it's a clear and concise picture. So I don't think anything with a cell phone is gonna work. So you'll have to do some sort of scan, unfortunately. But
I don't know how, I don't have. a
yeah,
computer
so,
with it.
okay.
You know how to Google?
And we can also, oh no, go ahead. What was that? I don't believe so, and only because I don't think it's gonna be clear enough and it's gonna have some sort of background on it. So if you can take a perfectly clear picture with a white background of like your passport or ID, it may work, but it'll reject it if it doesn't. So if you want to try, feel free to. I just can't say if it will or not.
So how we, so if you're gonna take it with your cell phone, it should be like basically put it on a white piece of paper.
Yes.
So that it's a clean background.
Again, yeah,
And that's, because I think some of the, like, the higher visual all.
it could. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it is finicky. So yeah,
It does look like salt.
okay, great. So, so were you able to just put something in the background and make it like, and that worked fine?
I dropped a little bit, so.
Okay. Okay, so if nobody heard that, then you can use a camera phone. Just put a piece of paper, your license, and then take a picture of it straight on, and you'll, be able to see it clearly. Then you can submit that, and that should work in theory. And if you have issues, feel free to call in and I can walk you through it if I need to. So from there, it's gonna ask you about extracted data. That essentially just means it's gonna fill in the information right here. Essentially, which is the document type. So one of these things, the document number, so for license numbers, it would fill it in right there, and then the expiration for that document. And if you don't want it to take that extracted data, you can fill it in yourself. Like say you do take a cell phone picture and it accepts it, but the extracted data isn't pulling correctly, you can fill it in yourself. And then from there, this is just gonna be your first and last name, your date of birth, and your residential address. So this may be different from your ID or your passport because those things change. Your ID might not be updated to your current address. So you'll want to make sure that is your most current address. And then from there, you're going to click this button, save and attach my info. And it should go through. And if you're having any issues with it, always email, always call me. We can walk through it together. I'm more than happy to help with it. I know it's a bit of a new system, so it's going to take some time for everybody to get used to, I think. Once you've submitted it, I can't unfortunately submit it here because I don't have all the information put in, but it should look like page 32, and it might be a bit hard to see, but it'll just say submission complete. You can review your information there in case there's anything you might want to look at and review to see what you put. And on my end, I'm going to get a notification and take it from there. So that's all you have to do is just submit your information. And then it's all on me. My thing is that this is significantly easier than a lot of the options that we looked at because it just sends you an email and you register yourself compared to having to go to a website and, pulling a lot of different information and submitting the EIN and all that stuff. It's just requiring the board members to upload their ID, residential address, first, last name, date of birth. That's it. So in theory, it should be relatively easy once you get a hang of, using it. So any questions? No? Then you can go back to the slideshow.
Will we assign a FinCEN number and we do that?
So I believe it assigns a FinCEN number for the total association. I don't know about each individual board member, but if there is, then that would just mean that it would allow me to just pull that information when I put in the FinCEN ID, and you could update it if needed. But if not, then it'll just, pull out the information from the FinCEN ID. That's what they're made for, is to allow quick and easy access for that information without having to resubmit it over and over and over again, if that makes sense. Because you don't have to keep uploading your ID, keep submitting your address over and over.
Clarify for the training.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So I forgot about that. So this is going to be if you feel that you want a multi-factor authentication. So once you've set up your account with FinCEN, you can go into your settings and you can select to enable the MFA, which is the multi-factor authentication. From there, it'll just send you a code to your email, just like how you got an email for the FinCEN. You'll copy that code that it sends you and put it in where it requests it on the MFA page. From there, you'll have a multi-factor authentication, basically just securing that account one step further in case you're one of those people who's maybe worried about people accessing your accounts and with sensitive information like your ID maybe. That way, every time that you log in, it's going to request a code and you'll have to take that code and paste it on top of putting in your password. So if you're a person who maybe feels more secure with that extra step of knowing that somebody has to have access to your email to get into this account, then that's what that's for. Any questions on that? Okay. So from there, we can take it to price structure.
You guys do. The technical.
And.
There you go. So I will preface any discussion with price that I'm hoping that we are going to do this once and that we are not going to have to do it ever again. I'm wishful thinking here. Right, exactly. So what I am hoping is going to happen and what I was hoping before was going to happen is there was going to be a carve out and an exemption for condominium and homeowners association board members. To date, that has not happened. I did not have this seminar. I did not roll directives out to the board members and property managers before now because I didn't want to do something that was going to be useless. If down the road, there was a directive that you no longer as board members had to file these reports. But here we are in almost in the last quarter of 2024, and we are down to the wire. So again, there are things happening that we are going to talk about after this, but this is the way we've set out our price structure. It's based on the number of board members that you have, and this is going to be the price for the initial filing. So basically 1 to 3 board members is going to be the lowest tier. That's going to be at $350. If you have 2 more board members, it will be $400. So basically we're going $50 increments for each number of board members you have. The reason for that is there's going to be more administrative time because we have some boards that have 3 board members. We have some that have 9. It's obviously going to take us a lot more time to get compliance with 9 board members unless they are super, super attentive to their email and they get this done quickly. So this is what our price structure looks like. Yes, sir.
Have you thought about, will you be offering this to associations that are self-managed or Why do we not have official legal representation?
Yes, so will we offer this to associations who are self-managed or do not have official legal representation? So we will be offering it to our associations that are self-managed. We are not offering it at this time to someone who is not officially signed up with us as legal representation. The reason for that is if those people have changes in board members, I'm not confident that we will ever get the information as to is this updated? And that we might do the initial filing and then not know how to contact those people. So that if you have those sorts of situations, we can discuss it certainly, or doing some sort of limited engagement. But I want to make sure that we can find these people and at least track them down and know who they are. So that would be my simple response to that. There was a question about subsequent filings. So we are still waiting to hear from our software provider, how they are going to continue to charge us. We don't know if they're going to charge us on an annual basis or on or a per filing basis. So unfortunately, that is information I would love to get you. But everybody in the industry is struggling with how do we roll this out and how do we do it quickly and how do we get it done before the end of the year. So as soon as I find that out, we will distribute this information to everybody to let you know how that's gonna go. Is it gonna be an annual filing fee? Is it going to be a per update fee? So, you know, if you have, it may be that it's just for the year and as many updates as you have, that's kind of how we're gonna do it. But it might be each time we have to go in there and change something, we might get charged. And if that happens, unfortunately, we're gonna have to pass along the costs. Usually those changes are truncated until right after an annual meeting or if there's really a resignation. But we will let you know as soon as we find that out. We're trying to make this convenient and not make it something expensive for you to do. We are just trying to cover the costs that we're charged and then our administrative time is basically what we're trying to do, yes.
We have a couple of good questions from our web friends. One of them, are the penalties, fines, and jail time for non-compliance for the entire board or the
So excellent question. Again, this is one of these issues that without having any case law as to how it's going to be interpreted and then thereby challenged, we don't know because the compliance date hasn't passed. But the way the statute is written, and I should also say that there is some more information at the very end of your packet about how we're looking at compliance and some of the other things. But basically, what we want to make sure is happening is that you personally know that if you don't file these updates, you could be held liable. And then the point person as well could be held liable if there's misinformation. One of the benefits to all of this for both all of you and us, is this system, we as the law firm are not the point person and you as the board members aren't the point person and neither are you as the managers. This company that submits the filings on our behalf is the point person. So we have a third party who has that liability technically, but again, this is all subject to interpretation. When we were starting to do this and determine, oh, can we do all these filings? We represent a few hundred associations. We have many board members. We were trying to figure out how we're going to manage all this data. This seems to make the most sense for us, just because we can roll out these updates and requests for updates to you as board members and not have to do manual emails each time. So this is the advantage of this system is we're kind of putting a shell on the liability, which is good for all of you and personally good for us, in case there is misinformation. Yes.
If you leave the board, does the account deleted, or does the government, Equus, or the management company keep all of the information?
Okay, so excellent question. So insofar as your information is concerned, once this report is filed, that information has been submitted to the federal government and we have record of that report. And we have record of that original filing. As far as your account is concerned, you can then go in and say, I'm going to delete this account. And that's not a problem, but the information has been submitted on behalf of the association. We have a copy, the government has a copy so that we have for our records, we can prove this has been done. But one of the challenges that we had with trying to figure out a system is not that you all don't love your fellow board members, but I could tell that it was going to be a problem if you could access everybody else's information who's on your board. So we wanted to make sure that was kept confidential, that you were confident that your law firm was going to keep this just within the auspices of this system. And we don't print out copies. This is all on a secured server, and that was really important to us. Yeah, so the question is there a possibility that there could be a software data breach through our software management company? Well, I would tell you that there is a possibility for anything. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure, both when we were looking at the software specifically for the Corporate Transparency Act, but also our software that we use to manage the legal affairs for your associations. This is on an Amazon grade server, and it's like the highest rating. I'm not a tech person, so I can't tell you exactly what it is, but we actually hold secure information for your debtors. We have like social security numbers in our files and stuff. So it's really important that for liability purposes that this be as foolproof as possible. All of our information is done, all of our access into this information that we're talking about is done with multi-factor authentication. So for anyone who has to do this for work or for other things, you know that if you ever lose your cell phone, you don't know what you're going to do with yourself because you need that to be able to get into any of these programs if you try to get into it, and they have to be able to prove that it's you. So excellent question. 10 minutes. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So I am going to turn it back over to Madeline. We had talked near the beginning of the presentation that we are members of the organization called the Community Associations Institute. And one of the benefits of that organization is that there is a strategic lobbying team and legal team that works on issues that are pertinent to condominium homeowners associations throughout the United States. So Madeline's going to talk a little bit about what they're doing to help in this situation.
I bet there were at least a few of you wondering why we're going on so much beginning about the Community Association Institute. This is the main reason why. So throughout all of this, I'm sure there's been some wonderings like, is anybody, we've been talking about carve outs, we've been talking about how we're worried it's going to affect board members' willingness to volunteer. Is anybody trying to fight this? Well, yeah, they are one of the loudest entities who are trying to, they spend some time trying to work, first of all, with the U.S. Department of Treasury for FinCEN to try and figure out, can we do a carve out for board members, do something to make it easier for our associations to file. And it developed to the point where they filed a lawsuit. It's the Community Associations Institute, the US Department of Treasury. Now, I'm gonna note there's two popular lawsuits about the CA or about the CTA that have been in the news. This isn't that other one, the National Small Business United versus Yellen. That's the one where they decided that the CTA was unconstitutional, but only for the entities involved and the parties involved with that lawsuit. This happens a lot, is like the court will chicken out, no offense to courts, and decide that, they don't want to make a big sweeping statement, so they'll say, yeah, it's unconstitutional, but just for these three. And that one's on an appeal. But the one here, Community Association Institute via US Department of Treasury. Basically, CAI have been loud about the fact that, hey, our associations, they rely on board members being willing to volunteer. They've got to file a new report as soon as there's any change. That's, pretty often for board members. We're nonprofit organizations, come on, we're just HOAs, we're likely to be involved in terrorist organizations. This is the reason why we really wanted to implement this act. And additionally, there are concerns, and there have been concerns since, frankly, this idea went into legislators just on their desks about the privacy concerns that, hey, you've got people's personal information. Yeah, we issued the government IDs in the first place, but it makes people uncomfortable. So all of this and more CAI is arguing about in this lawsuit. The lawsuit is still pending. It was filed on September 10th, not long ago at all. CAI at this time, though, has asked for something called a temporary injunction. In legal speak, that means that CAI has asked, hey, while we're going through this lawsuit, court, could you please make an order that our HOAs and our condominiums don't have to comply with this new law, this new filing requirement while we're figuring all this out. The court has discretion to determine, whether it's going to grant that, how long that block would be for. It might just grant a little extension. It might even say, oh yeah, sure, but only for members of CAI, similar to what they did in that other suit, only for these guys. At this time, though, we're encouraging everyone to be prepared to comply. They may not grant this, and we won't know until, I believe, in October, a little bit later in October, there's going to be a hearing on this, and then we'll know more. But right now, we don't know if this is going to go anywhere. I honestly cannot tell you one way or the other. I've heard some other attorneys say that, hey, they think that possibly they have hope we might win, and then we won't have to worry about this ever again. But I've heard other attorneys say, they're trying, but it's the government's the government. They're not going to budge. So I don't know. But our advice to you is prepare to comply with the CTA. And don't necessarily bank on this. But Lindsay mentioned at the beginning, we're keeping up with the law. We're going to seminars where we learn specific developments like this. And we're specifically keeping an eye on this lawsuit right here. So we'll advise you as soon as we know whether or not this is going to turn inside. All right. Q&A. Turning it back over to Lindsay.
All right, just sort of in wrapping up here. We want to make sure, just to reiterate these points, and this is in your seminar materials, but this is Kelby's email address. So again, once you have a board decision as to whether or not you'd like us to handle this, email Kelby, call Kelby. That's our website, and all of us from our HOA team are on there. We're asking just so that we don't have a flood of filings like the week of Christmas, that we submit this. If you can just let us know by December 5th, and we can get the process started. We want to be able to have this in all of your board members' inboxes in their email by December 5th, so that we can do follow-ups as necessary and make sure that we get you filed. So the sooner the better. On that lawsuit front, we have that October 11th hearing on the preliminary injunction that is in that federal court lawsuit. They may make a ruling the same day, but probably not. I'm guessing it's probably gonna be at least 2 weeks or 30 days out. So it's just something we can't count on, so we need to be able to prepare for it. If for some reason that halts the need to do this, we will halt everything. But again, sooner is better.
Yeah, soon is great, and I want to add that, Madam Mayor, we can start as soon as this week. So if you are, gung ho about it, you're ready to go, you can email me tomorrow, and we can get it started. I just wanted to add that we are ready to go soon this week, that is the deadline, so it doesn't mean to email me on December 4th, you can email me tomorrow if you're ready to go, so just want to let you guys know.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelby. Yes.
What is the, like confirmation or follow-up process that we get to know you did?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. What is the confirmation process so that you are aware that we did the filing? So we are going to send you a confirmation that the filing has been done, and we are also going to send you the association's unique FinCEN ID so that you are aware for future filings. For whatever reason, if we're not involved and you change legal counsel or you decide you want your manager to do it next time, we're going to share that information with you. And again, we're filing the report on your behalf, but we are not going to send a copy to everybody with all of that information because we want to keep that part of it confidential. Unfortunately, a lot of this is very new for us as well. So since we have not officially submitted a true report with this system, I'm not quite sure what our confirmation is going to look like. Can I just send that to you? Likely I can send you the confirmation, but I don't know that I can send you the actual report without disseminating information about your other board members, and that's going to be the rub there. But excellent question. Yeah.
So we have a question, just if someone still wants a little bit of clarification from, slide on page 13. The exemption for board members is saying more than 5 million in annual revenue.
Okay, so the clarification is if you belong to an association that does have more than $5 million in annual revenue, you are exempt from this filing requirement. And I was not very specific as to the reason why they determined this, but the issue was if you had revenue over 5 million, you are apparently overseen by a different department within the Department of Treasury. And I don't know what that department is, but I don't believe that we have any associations that have a revenue of over 5 million. So I haven't even asked that question.
Clarify
Yeah.
just slightly is, it's not so much just a different department, it's there are already laws in place keeping track of who you are, who your owners are, if you have $5 million or more in revenue. Like the iOS already zeroed in on you, the trainers gave the amount, therefore, no need to ask for more protection.
Thank you, I appreciate